There's a lot to get into with this Browns game that just happened. Well, yesterday when you see this video, but today when I'm recording it, a lot to get into and a lot to recap and a lot to talk about, right? There's going to be some people who are going to be upset with Joe Woods. There's going to be some people who are going to be upset with other things. I think there's a lot to talk about, and I get it. The Browns did win this game, and I want this video, right? I'm going to have some criticisms, but I want this video to make sure that everybody views this in the context that the Browns did win this game, but we're looking at this from the context of what they need to improve to be the team that we want this team to be at the end of the year, and what needs to get better for this team to get to this point, and what needs to happen for this team to reach what I think is a very reachable goal for them this year. So what are those things? What did they show on Sunday, and what did they show they need to fix on Sunday in it was a victory. It was a 10-point victory, but it wasn't necessarily the most satisfying victory in the world. So what did we learn from this game? Well, we'll talk about it. But before I get into that, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell. I do live streams, a live watch along, and a live post game show after every game. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I do this. Also, want to give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And if you want your name on this list, make sure you join the Patreon at patreon.com/worst takes. $3 gets you in. $10 gets you a shout out at the beginning of these videos. But without further ado, Michael Mateek, Michael Morales, Mark Kahn, Max Haymaker, Drake, Nick Merrick, Mike Labra, Wes and Megan, D.A. and J, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Easley Bash, Joe Hart, Gabriel Wilson, Fred Pratt III, David Valtiara, Relentless Buck, Chunt, Rex Kaufman, Kevin Johnston, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Sign Sheets, Gemini, Lewin Freeman, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo Magnifico, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Deveroff, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Brad Cowboy, Dylan W, James McGinley, Arendal, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Jaleel Salim Jr., Mark M, Stuart Moore, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Batman, Barack Kumar, John Albert, Beerman069, Masayua, Buzzer Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcox, Marie Rivert, Sean Barron, Gagos Pisano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazzola, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Christian, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Billy Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Lydia, Jesus Serrano, Alexander Davis, Chris Phones, Picktown Browns backer, Max Nilikenko, Mark Khan, Max Aldojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for your support on Patreon. It means a ton. It makes this show possible. It makes a lot of what I do possible. I can't thank you guys enough. But now let's talk about the game. I know the Browns are at a different point in their development where we're not just happy for wins just for wins' sake, but it is a victory Monday, right? I want everybody to, if you have some criticisms or you have some frustrations over the game, to at least enjoy the fact that the Browns are at a point to where they could win a game by 10 points and you don't really feel that great about it, right? Like, enjoy that that's where we're at. I know that we're supposed to be beyond this, but we have been through so much misery, more than most other fan bases, that when you get to this point, enjoy it a little bit more, right? Like, yes, there's room for improvement and everything else, but enjoy it. And with that theme of enjoyment, I'm going to start with the positives first, right? I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest positives of this game were the young guys. The young guys, and it's weird to say young guys on this roster because literally everybody is young, but the young guys, the rookies, or first-year guys for whatever reason, maybe it was injury or opt-outs, looked great. Grant Delpit, in his first action in the NFL, I think he had like 2 sacks and almost had an interception. He looks great. He looks explosive. He looks ready to play. I'm excited for what Grant Delpit has. He looks like he's Grant Delpit. I'm excited about that. So Grant Delpit, and then also Demetric Felton. Oh my goodness, he was amazing. He was awesome. It's hard to think that somebody as athletic and as talented as him went in the 6th round, but shouts out to Andrew Berry for finding a gem, because he looks like a gem. He looks like he's going to be a very good football player for a very long time, and the Browns are lucky to have that guy on the roster. Another young guy that stood out, I felt like JOK had a good game. And I felt like the young guys need to see more reps, need to get the ball, or need to be on defense more often, right? I think that's the biggest takeaway. You have some young guys that I think once they get fully acclimated into this defense are going to actually make a difference. Greg Newsome was fantastic. Now, he's already fully acclimated into this defense. He looked better than Denzel Ward did today, and that's something. But Greg Newsome looked awesome. The young guys, the rookies, the first-year guys, or the guys getting their first season in of NFL play, some of those guys looked really good. Malik McDowell looked really good until he got hurt. But those guys looked great. That is the best and most positive takeaway from this game. Those guys looked great. On the offensive side of the ball, some of the positives I'll say is that I think Baker, he has looked good to the point where I feel like he's ready for more, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. The running game waked up when they needed to in the fourth quarter and dominated and got the touchdowns and scores that they needed to do and the ball movement, all that stuff. So they got that late. They weren't great in the first half, but they figured it out late. Wide receivers left a lot to be desired, but I'll talk about that later. Defensively, I felt like Jadeveon Clowney had an excellent game. I think he played really well. Malik McDowell, when he was in there, was pretty good. Again, Greg Newsome was good. Denzel Ward had an off game. Malcolm Smith, I felt like, played well. JLK, I already mentioned, felt like he played well. Taki felt like he played well. Didn't feel like the back end played that well outside of Grant Delpit. So that is the positive takeaways from this game. You did enough to win. And again, this is a position the Cleveland Browns have been on the opposite end of multiple times throughout their history, right? Especially when they were like perennial 4-12, 6-10, where they would play a team that should blow them out. That team does not blow them out. They have a frustratingly close game, but they end up winning by a double-digit margin, right? These games happen when you're a good team where, hey, you don't play your best game, you play kind of sloppy, but you still win the game, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day, right? So these things happen. I don't think this is a reason to panic that you only beat the Texans by 10. Like, there's no reason to panic or be angry or anything because of this game because, you know, sometimes you just win sloppily in the NFL. Most teams have a sloppy win or two or three in their resume when they win a bunch of games in the NFL. So that's fine, right? But what made this game sloppy and what were some of the things that concerned me? We'll start with the offense, right? Offensive line play just hasn't been what it was last year, especially in pass protection, right? I think Baker has gotten sacked more than he was getting, or at a higher rate, than he was getting sacked last year. That's a little bit of a concern, right? Especially when Jedrick's in there. Now, Jedrick played hurt, so maybe that had something to do with it, but a lot of this was pressure in the interior. So something's going on there. I know J.C. Tretter's been hurt all year. He hasn't been practicing, so maybe that has something to do with it. Same thing with Joe Bitonio. So maybe they're just banged up right now, the offensive line. That's why they're not looking as good as they used to, but it's not looking as good as it used to. The running backs looked fine. I felt like the only reason they weren't being as productive was the offensive line just wasn't dominating like we're expecting them to. Wide receivers, look, they were out Odell. Jarvis went out very early in this game, and they were relying on Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins, and Anthony Schwartz. Anthony Schwartz, just not ready yet for a huge role. I think he's ready for a supplemental role, not a huge role. And I think he got forced into a huge role today. He wasn't ready for it. There was a one interception Baker threw where he didn't finish his route. Now, I'm not going to 100% blame that interception on Anthony Schwartz because I don't think Baker should have threw that ball there. We'll know more when the tape comes out. But, you know, still you want to finish your route. You want to contest that. You want to do everything you can as a wide receiver to make sure that ball doesn't get intercepted. That's a lesson that he'll learn. That wasn't great. Donovan Peoples-Jones, another disappointing game, had a huge fumble in the red zone. I hope he has a big bounce back game against the Chicago Bears. I really do, because it doesn't look like Jarvis is coming back anytime soon. It may be the case that we get Odell back next week, so that's going to be a huge factor. But wide receiver play, I would say, left a lot to be desired. I felt like the tight ends were fine. They've been really carrying this passing attack so far throughout the season here. And my overall criticism of the coaching staff, and this goes for the offense and the defense, there's an overall lack of aggressiveness that is bothering me right now with this team. And it doesn't make sense on the offense because we know Kevin Stefanski is aggressive. But in this game, he was so passive to the point that it was really frustrating to watch. I mean, on one level, I get it. Baker got hurt early on, and I'm pretty sure Kevin Stefanski sees what everybody else sees, which is you ain't gonna win no games with Case Keenum. Like, Case Keenum's just not ready to win games, and you're kind of stuck with Case Keenum if Baker gets hurt in this game. So he cannot get hurt. You're not winning this game with Case Keenum. Nobody is taking the threat of Case Keenum seriously. It's gonna stop the box. You're not gonna win games with Case Keenum. So since that is the case, no pun intended, they turn to a really, really conservative play calling when it comes to Baker Mayfield. They did not, and Kevin Stefanski admitted this in his press conference, he was calling the game because in a way to make sure that Baker doesn't take hits and doesn't get hurt more than he already is, which I can understand and I appreciate. But this criticism goes back further than just when Baker hurt his shoulder. It goes back all the way to Kansas City. It goes back to the first 2 quarters of this game before Baker hurt his arm. He's not taking enough shots down the field. And I know a lot of people are excited about Baker's completion percentage being super high. I'm not somebody who really puts a lot of stock in the completion percentage. And I don't think his completion percentage being like ridiculously high in like the 90s like it is right now is necessarily a good thing, just because I think that's an indication that they're not really using Baker Mayfield to his fullest extent, which is using that ridiculously strong arm that he has and that accuracy that he has to attack downfield. That's when you can have Baker Mayfield control the game. That's when you can have Baker Mayfield dominate the game, is when he's using that arm to get downfield and attack efficiently. And sometimes it's going to cost you in completion percentage. I'm completely fine with that. If Baker was at 70 or 65% completion percentage, but he was attacking downfield, I feel like the Browns offense would be moving a lot better than when he has these high completion percentages, but they're getting 3 and outs or not scoring a bulk of the time when he's out there. So I want to see the play calling for Baker Mayfield whenever they feel like he's comfortable enough to be out there at full go again, be a lot more aggressive than what it's been to start the year. I feel like we've moved backwards because at the end of the year, it was very aggressive, it was very downfield, and he was very accurate, and he was very dominant in that way. Now we're going way back to what we started with last year, where it was super passive, and they weren't letting him kind of get these extended passing attempts that he got at the end of the year, and it feels like we're moving backwards with the offense instead of forward. So I want to see that aggressiveness come back to the offense. Now, let's talk about the defense, because that's what a lot of people want to talk about, right? A lot of people want Joe Woods fired after this week. Look, Joe Woods at this point, he's just become the new Andrew Sadejo. So legit, anything that goes wrong in a game, they're just going to blame Joe Woods at this point, right? Like, the defense could shut a team out, but the Browns don't look great in it offensively. They're going to blame Joe Woods. Like, he has become the Andrew Sadejo of this team for whatever reason. And I think sometimes it's a little bit unfair how much we put on Joe Woods. I think overall, this was a very sloppy effort by the Cleveland Browns. It wasn't just sloppy on the defensive side of the ball. The offense had 2 turnovers. Baker threw an interception and there was a fumble. So they weren't the only ones being sloppy out here. That being said, some of this stuff makes me worried about Joe Woods. Some of this stuff makes me, think that it's going to be fixed over time. And then some of this stuff is more on the players, right? The tackling, the miscommunication, that stuff's more on the players. And that's part of the problem on the defense. Another part that I feel like is going to be fixed is the lack of creativity, the lack of interesting fronts that they can put out there. That's going to be fixed later down the line, right? When they get Grant Delpit more acclimated, when they get JOK more acclimated and they're able to play them full-time snaps, I think you're going to see a lot of different fronts, a lot of different things, a lot more interesting things from this defense, and a little bit more aggressiveness here. The one thing that does concern me is, for lack of a better word, I'm going to describe this like a video game. But on 3rd and short, it seems like the base defenses that Joe Woods likes to go to, there is a major exploit in there. And it's one thing when it's the Chiefs taking advantage of that exploit, but when it's Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills taking advantage of that exploit, that makes me think that there is a fatal flaw in some of the coverages and the responsibilities in there that needs to be patched up as soon as possible, because they could not stop a 3rd and short to save their life. And it was the same play most of the time. It was a short little shallow slant in the middle of the field. that they just couldn't get in front of, right? They were playing too soft, and they were able to get it almost every time on every third and short. And these aren't great quarterbacks doing it. Like, no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor. I think he's underrated, but Tyrod Taylor ain't Patrick Mahomes. Like, he don't get that same level of grace. So that is one thing that I have to be concerned about Joe Woods on. But hey, look, Joe Woods ain't getting fired. Joe Woods ain't going nowhere this year. Give Joe Woods some time. Let's see what the defense looks like by week 8. And maybe this is something we laugh about because, you know, we've had to pitchforks out for players before in week 2 and have looked goofy about it in week 10. So let's give that thing time. Overall, look, it was a sloppy effort by the Cleveland Browns, but only thing we're going to remember about this game is that the Browns won it. That's honestly the truth, right? So, and the Browns needed to win these games. These are games you need to win, even if you play bad in the NFL, if you want to be a top level team. Now they need to focus on looking more like a top level team, playing more consistently like a top level team, and fixing some of these issues on the defense, right? Some of this will be fixed with additional personnel coming in, the younger players getting more snaps and all that. I think some of that's going to be fixed with that. But a lot of this needs to be tweaked within the coaching staff. It needs to be tweaked within the players. It needs to be tweaked within the communication. So there's a lot of work to be done, but the work that needs to be done is more than doable for this season. So I'm still very excited about this Browns team. They have an interesting test coming up against the Bears. The Bears played really good defense against the Cincinnati Bengals. They forced Joe Burrow to throw 3 fourth quarter interceptions. So they're going to be no joke next week. They're starting Justin Fields, it looks like, because they already put him in. So it looks like we're going to be going up against Justin Fields. Maybe the offense is a little better. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Justin Fields looked pretty good there. So I'm looking forward to next week. And seeing what they can clean up and fix before that game. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.